All right. Good morning, students. Nice to see you today. Here we go. I am continuing with the discussion of what I call the progression by which people gather in a region and create a civilization, also known as the BoxArrowBox, BAB. This is part 2 of BAB. Should finish it today. This is a very important concept, as I said. You got to get this. You got to get the concepts within this. If you can get this, it will help you understand any kind of history, as I mentioned yesterday. Okay, so this will be the last thing that we'll sort of cover before the quiz that you'll take coming up, and we'll do some review before that, of course. Okay, so here we go. Focus. Zoom in. Get ready. All right. I think that I ended. Of course, I drew this cool drawing of a bunch of farms near downriver, down by the sea. I believe that we, of course, covered lifestyles of movement, the hunter-gatherer nomads. I discussed how these groups of people are small in number. There's not very many of these types of folks. And there's a reason why. It's easier to move with fewer people. It's fewer mouths to feed. And then comes the most important invention in human history, I called it. Agriculture. And this changes everything. And the real reason it changes everything is that it allows for permanence and ultimately the increase in population. And once you have an increase in population, things change. And we're going to see that as we go along today. All right? We went through this and we talked about how we have societies based on water. You know, I just sort of say, is Maui a place? Is Maui a society based on water? I think you would have to agree. Were ancient Hawaiians a hydraulic society? Certainly. And not just ocean water either. When you think of an island, you think of it as surrounded by ocean. Certainly, ancient Native Hawaiians were a hydraulic freshwater society as well. I talked about how did these people who lived down here, how did they make sure that the floods came? Well, they prayed, didn't they? They prayed to the water god, whatever you want to call it, the river god, or gods. Most of ancient history, of course, is really polytheistic. Polytheism, many gods, as opposed to monotheistic. Monotheistic is one god. Most of modern history is monotheistic. Okay, and then we get down to it and we saw, what did you need? Where did this prayer take place? Well, usually people of these places designated some sort of central meeting place to have these religious ceremonies of whatever type they may end up being. And the cities started to grow around these central meeting places. And really I kind of commented, what's the oldest building in every city? The church. The religious gathering place is always the oldest building in any city you want to go to, big or small, anywhere on earth. All right? Who designs these things? Well, you got somebody called an architect who gets going and helps with these things and is an important part of the discussion here. Then I talked about power and how we start to see and how power manifests itself. There's always hierarchies. I commented there's certainly hierarchies. Don't kid yourself. There were hierarchies in these types of societies. There's no doubt about that. But hierarchies will certainly manifest themselves in agricultural societies as well. And I talked about how, if you recall, I'm this person in this farm that's one farm away from the river. Who's the most important person in my life? Well, it's this person right here. This person is by far the most important person in my life, because what does he have control over? He has control over my irrigation water. My irrigation water has to cross his land to get to my farm. That person has power over me. I describe these people as the people living closest to the river. I describe these people as people whose families had been in this society the longest. Obviously, they came first. The first people who came set up right next to the river. So this person's family has been there the longest. This makes them the nobility, dare I call them the aristocrats, as we go along. Okay, I think we're now ready to continue on with our BoxArrowBox. We've got a number of them to go here. This is going to pick up speed. And it doesn't only do this in my write it down period, but it does it in real life history as well. Okay, so how do people with power stay in power? Well, how do people, I mean, you know, people who have power, they want to maintain it, don't they? They want to keep it. They want to hold on to it. So what do they do to maintain the power? Well, what are they going to do? They're going to make some laws and rules, aren't they? They're going to make sure they hold on to this power by writing down things to say, hey, the rest of you who don't have power, you can't do anything to threaten our power. This helps those in power to maintain power. All right? Okay, now, as you continue along with this whole thing and you sort of think about laws and rules, okay, that's great to have laws and rules, and these government people, you know, they can want to have power all they want, and they can write all the laws and rules they want, can't they? But when it really comes down to it, what do they really also need? They need somebody to enforce these laws and rules. And this is where we start to see the very first militaries. What is the purpose of original militaries? Military's original purpose was to maintain laws. So you would think, okay, well, this is the police, Mr. O'Brien. Yes, yeah, that's exactly correct. And I would sort of say, this is my point, is that original military served originally as police, as we would think of it in modern times, as we would think of it today. Later on, what did these militaries do? Well, they did two other things. Okay, they could invade other places. They could defend the home territory from other invaders. All right, so certainly the military will take on its what we would sort of say its traditional roles as something different than the police. Okay. All right, now, I would just sort of throw this out at you. All right, think about the buildings we're building now. All right, there's a building here, isn't there? All right, this is a very important concept within this big concept. Okay, so building number one, the central meeting place. Okay, building number two, the palace. How about I put it that way? Okay, the palace. All right, where the king, where the government leader, where the nobility, where the person from the you know, these people that live along the river, the nobles, they pick one family and one guy to lead them. All right, and this person becomes the king. So you have, okay, the temple, then you have the palace, and by the way, in many cases, the government leader also did a lot of stuff at the temple, didn't they? Because as I commented, the government leader was often appointed by God, and the government leader was the one who could connect with the God, and therefore delivered the water, and so that's how they had power. Okay, now what do you do? Well, the next building or the next structure that is constructed is going to be the fortress. You're going to build a wall around. You're going to build a wall around the temple and the palace. Okay. You're going to build an armory. You're going to have to build barracks. So some sort of military building is going to be the next thing. That's the third building. Okay. And I'm going to make an argument to you here, right here and now, that there's going to be a fourth building. The oldest building of all is, of course, the temple or the church. The next oldest building is going to be the palace. The next oldest building is going to be the fortress and the wall around it, whatever. There's a fourth building, that's the oldest building in the town. Can you think of what is the fourth thing that every city has right downtown, right down there, right in the middle of town? It's a place where people go, they want to go, dare I say they need to go. Okay? Let me sort of give you a little hint here. Let me go back to my farm. Okay? Let's see, let's just say I produce whatever produce here. How do I sell my produce? How do I get rid of my produce? Where do I take it to get rid of it? Some sort of unique place? Yes, some sort of unique place. It is called, and I think you're getting this, this is called, you got to have a trading system, and you really need a marketplace. That's what I'm talking about. Okay? And by the way, if I'm setting up the market, if I'm a person who wants to sell my goods or trade my goods, where is a logical place to set up my market? Well, I would argue it would be I'd set up my market right next to the temple. Why? Well, what are people doing? People are going to the temple. My point is, if people are going to the temple, by gosh, when they're done praying or whatever they're doing, they're going to be hungry. And what a logical place to have a market than right next to where people, dare I say, want to eat. Okay? All right, now let's say that I go down to the marketplace and I have a bunch of, I don't know, lettuce to sell. And I go over to the guy with the carrots and I say, the guy who brought the carrots to the marketplace, I say, hey, do you want to trade some of my lettuce for your carrots? And the guy says, yeah, you have good lettuce, but no thanks. And I really want some of his carrots. But all I've got, well, I expected to be able to get some of his carrots with some of my lettuce. And I say to the carrot guy, how can I get some of your carrots? And the carrot guy says, well, do you have any of that pretty shiny yellow metal? And I say, yeah, I got some of that shiny yellow metal that is really beautiful. And he says, well, give me a couple of bits of that shiny yellow metal and I'll give you some of my carrots. And I go, okay, I'm going to do it. And what have I just done? I haven't traded for his carrots. I've paid for his carrots, haven't I? And so what I've just discussed with you is the concept of currency. And I think that the study of currency is very interesting. And one of the things, we don't want to talk about history repeating itself, currency historically has always been based on precious metals, gold and silver. Until really modern times. In the Middle Ages we see a switch, especially with the Chinese and the Mongols, to paper money. Now we have a system in which value is only based on the paper. And the question always with this is paper really worth something? We know gold and silver is worth something. Anyway, I'm getting off track. But the fact still remains that this is a very important part of the story. Now, some people have more gold and silver than others, don't they? Some people, like I said, they have better land. They have better crops every year. Okay? Their land is more valuable. Their crops are more valuable. They're, dare I say, wealthier. All right? Now, you can see what I'm getting at here. Eventually, what is going to emerge here, much more so, I would say, than the societies of movement, the hunter-gatherers, and the nomads, much more so you're going to have a class system eventually arise in these agricultural societies, in which you have people that have, some people have, just by the nature of their land. Look, land is really probably the key thing here more than anything else. And I would dare I say that land has been a very important aspect of a person's wealth throughout history. Remember my description. Remember, I'm this person. Okay, I'm this guy, and I don't have a good crop one year, and I'm behind. And what do? I sold a portion of this land, and who's the logical person to sell it to? This person, because this person is wealthier. He can afford it. He bought it. It worked out great for both of us. All right, but my point is, you have the development of classes. Okay, now my next thing I would say to you is, how do I keep track of all this stuff? How do I keep track of how much gold I have in the bank, how much gold and silver I have in the bank, how much our trade has been valued at? How do the laws? How do we keep track of the laws and the rules? Okay, how do we keep track of the stories of the religion? Okay, how do we keep track of all that stuff? Well, I think you've gotten it. And this box could end up being in a bunch of different places. Obviously, a writing system is what I'm getting at. Writing comes out of artwork. All right, original alphabets are generally, original stories are told strictly based on artistic, what we would call pictures. All right, some of the original written languages of history, like the Egyptian hieroglyphics, are really a picture language. We speak English in the modern time. That's an alphabetic based language. The Egyptian hieroglyphics are a picture-based writing system. Okay? And look, you got to eventually figure out, you got to make sure that you have people who can do this. Okay, well, where do people who know how to write or have learned how to write, where do they learn it? Well, you're eventually going to have to set up an education system. Okay? Now, all these things that you've written down, all these transactions, all these stories, all these discussions of history, all these banking transactions, if you will, where do you keep all those things? Where do you keep all the stuff that gets written down? Well, I think you figured it out. Here's another building, I guess. You put it all into a library. And so my last box is history. Okay, so there's 19 boxes right there. And as this time has gone along, okay, here we are at history. Okay, so I've got a couple other things to say about this. I need to make some other points, very important points here along the way. Okay, so here we go. Keep up with me, all right? We're getting to almost to the end here. Look, this order that I've created here for you is not perfect. It does not happen in the same order all the time. Like I just said, writing could be further up, for example. Okay? So it doesn't have to happen in the same order. And let me dare say that this process is not overnight. It just... What are you doing out there? Oh, I'm planting some corn. Okay, great. I'll go tell the teachers at the school you're doing that. It doesn't work that way. Okay, there's a big... This process takes a long time. Now, I would argue, even though it takes a long time, the process is going to go faster as you go along. And this is going to be a process of population. There's going to be more people, as you'll see here in just a moment. Okay, so these things are very important. So, what are the most important points? All right, all right, here we go. This is a big one right here. Okay, number one, most important points. Let me just sort of hit three things here. One I've already hit, but let me make a point here about this. Number one. All right, this is a two-word term. I told you this whole concept is very important. This whole BoxArrowBox is the most important part of it. This is the most important term of this course. It's a two-word term. I'm about to throw it out at you. And if you can remember this two-word term, you're going to understand history way better. And again, like I said, anywhere, anyplace, anytime. Here's the two-word term you need to be able to memorize and have at a moment's notice and regurgitate and spit back at me when I ask for it. This is the key. The two-word term is... The two-word term is specialized labor. And what I am making, take a look at this art, okay. A labor is a form of work, okay? Somebody who does a particular form of work that is specific. How's that sound? A specific type of work. And there's more specific type of work, there's more specialized labor, the further the progression goes. So as I went along, you probably noticed more examples of specialized labor as I went along, all right? And I would argue, point number two, there are four critical specialized labors. There are four that you need to make sure you have got wired, have got it nailed. Look, there's a ton of them, but there are four major important ones, and I think you probably already figured it out. What are they? Religion, the religious person, all right? The government person, the merchant, and the soldier. These are the four most important These are the four most important ones. Now, let me go back and let me revisit this just for a moment. Okay, so when you go back to these people, all right, who got their food? Well, they did. The individual person had sometimes to get their own food. Okay, who made the person's weapons? Well, they did. The individual person had to make his own weapon to get his own food. Who made that person's clothes or shelter? Well, the person who, that individual person had to make his own shelter, probably made his own weaponry in there and got his own. You see where I'm going with this? These people had to do everything, and even original agriculturalists to a degree. Okay, and I will grant you that agriculture is a specialized labor. But what I'm saying to you is it gets even more specialized as time goes along. Do you think that the priest, okay? Do you think that the priest? How about this? Do you think that the king would go out into the fields and help with the agriculture? Well, of course not. Because what does the king do? He does government stuff. What does the priest do? He does religion stuff. What does the merchant do? The merchant is involved with trade. What does the soldier do? I will grant you that sometimes soldiers came from the agricultural group of people. But what are they specifically trained to do? Military stuff. Okay, does this make sense what I'm getting at? These are specialized. All right? Look, hunting and gathering, hunting is difficult, and you've got to really do it a long time to get good at it. I'm not denying that hunting isn't a specialized thing. But my point is that these people, they did everything for themselves. These people, okay, the king had other people to do things for them, as an example. What are the buildings of these? And I kind of did this already, didn't I? All right? You look at these ancient civilizations, you look at modern cities, and sure enough, this is kind of like a hint. What is the hint to remember these four most important types of specialized labor? Think about the oldest buildings in any city. The oldest buildings are always the church or temple, the palace or the castle, the marketplace, and the fort, fortress, armory, barracks. Those are the most important buildings in any city, and cities grow around those. And look, I said cities came right after religion. You get my point. Cities are super important in this whole thing. Okay? All right. The speed. Okay, here we go. Oh boy, there we go. Number 3. Okay. Here we go. This is another huge thing you got to make sure you get. And this is the key to everything. Sorry, I like to repeat myself. This is the key. This is the key. Okay. Mr. O'Brien thinks everything's important. I do actually, but this is really important right here. Okay. The BoxArrowBox is going to go at a particular speed in each individual place. In other words, it's not going to go the same speed in one place that it does the other. Certain civilizations are going to develop faster than others. It doesn't have anything to do with, well, these people over here are smarter than these people over here. They have smarter brains than these people over here. All right? It doesn't have anything to do with that. I'm not trying to imply that original hunter-gatherers and nomads and even original agricultural people were stupid. I don't think that. I would never think that. I don't think that somebody from a less advanced civilization is any dumber or brighter than anybody from a modern civilization that's highly advanced. I'm not trying to say that. What I'm saying is there's something very specific that causes the BoxArrowBox to move at whatever speed it moves. And this thing is, ready? Geography. Okay, now what the heck do you mean, Mr. Bryan? I am going to make the argument in this course that geography is going to be, if you study your geography, you will understand history even better. All right? Even better. The better the geography is for agriculture, okay? Now think about what I'm saying here. If you can have a place with really good agriculture, because the geography is so good, all right? This is stuff like flat land and water source and good weather, okay? If the geography is good, you're going to have good agriculture. If you're going to have, and when you have good agriculture, what do you have? You have population growth. The faster the population grows, the greater the specialized laborer. There will be more specialized laborers. There will be people to do different things. And look, I can get into some types of specialized laborers that really make civilizations unique, can't I? Like artists and sculptors and writers and all kinds of things. Architects, again, are an example of this. that make every single civilization unique and special. Okay? So this is a very important part of this whole thing. In fact, here's one of the secret things that you can use to always remember this entire thing. Yes, it's 19 boxes, and that's a lot to memorize. I think if you thought it through, you'd figure most of it out. But here's a 4-letter way to remember this entire concept a little bit better. And the 4-letter word is gaps. Now, if you can remember gaps, and dare I say spag sometimes, you're going to be okay remembering this concept. Okay, now, what do you think GAPS stands for? Well, it's all right there in the paragraph above you. What's got to come first? Geography. What comes second? Agriculture. What comes third? Population growth. What comes next? Specialized labor. Okay? GAPS. Now, I'll sometimes ask you, what does a society need to have specialized labor? Good, really advanced specialized labor. Don't say geography. Well, you can't skip a step. I say to you, why does a society have good specialized labor? You would say, Mr. O'Brien, because they have big populations. I say, why do they have big populations? Oh, well, because, Mr. O'Brien, they have good agriculture. Why do they have good agriculture? Well, they're located in a place with good geography. So it's not only gaps, technically, I guess, it's also spag if I want to go backwards. Okay? All right. There you have it. The BoxArrowBox. I hope you see how this is so critical to the study of history and how it can be super helpful to you in the grand scheme of the studying of history. All right? Okay. See you next time. We'll have some live stuff before the quiz. Don't worry. But this, dare I say, gaps could be on the quiz. Among other things. All right, everybody. Next time. See you next time. Aloha.